Awesome. Check. Thank you. How's that volume? Great. Thank you for coming out. My name is Tom. I'm the tech evangelist for Galvanize here in Denver, Colorado. Thank you again for coming out. We have some people joining us to dialogue around this phenomenon known as imposter syndrome. I'm assuming most of you know what that is at this point. Great. I think for the sake of our virtual audience, I'll do a little bit of a what and a why, and then we'll kick it off into introductions, a few questions, and then I'll open it up to the audience to ask as you'd like. So imposter syndrome, as I've sort of come to describe it or define it myself, is a struggle or a condition, perception, really a state of mind that's formed out of fear. Tends to manifest itself into anxiety, self-doubt, even as far as self-sabotage. So I say that so that we can be clear as to what we will be talking about and the description of it as I have seen it. But I'd like you all at some point to give what you've felt in imposter syndrome to manifest itself into. Great. And why I decided, or why we, the company Galvanize, decided to talk about this is it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. It's universal. It's not just tech, but it seems to be quite a conversation in tech. How many in the room work in tech in some capacity? Software engineers, data scientists, developers, UX designers, digital marketers, salespeople. Great. Yeah, I think we've all at some point experienced a form, and that's why we're here. We want to talk about it, see what we can learn, see how we can address it, what we can do to come away and dig into it a little bit further. I think I am the only mic holder, so I'm going to just pass it along, and we'll just do some introductions. Who are we? Why are we here? Share as little as you'd like. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Austin Lovelace. I just accepted a new job. I'm going to be a cloud engineer at Worldwide Technology. Currently a software engineer at Intercom. It's a radio company. Graduated from Galvanize back in November, and running a meetup called AWS Denver, and that's pretty much a synopsis of my life. So.
My name's An. I work for a tech consulting company as a full stack developer, and graduated from Galvanize in November. And yeah, still going at it.
Yeah, my name is Gretchen Riggs. I graduated from Galvanize, I think it's going on like 2 years now, back in 2007. And I work as a data scientist at a startup out of Indiana that does analytics on honeybees, which is pretty cool. And I'm also the VP of Communications for the Data Management Association of Denver. We hold the meetups too, so.
Hi, my name is Anita Khedkar, and I graduated from Galvanize, I think in 2017. Currently, actually I shouldn't say currently because I quit 2 weeks ago, but I am a software developer and a Scrum Master for a company called Vertifor. It's in downtown here. The reason I'm here today is because I came back to the tech field after like 17 years of being away from it, and so imposter syndrome was everywhere for me. So I've come a long way from it, and I would love to talk about it today.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I think we're going to have a good conversation. What I'd like, and take time to think through this, I'd like to hear your experiences, a time in which you were an imposter, what that looked like when you recognized it. Being graduates of the Galvanize programs as a data scientist, software engineer, full stack developers. Before I move any further, how many are you familiar with boot camps, coding boot camps like Galvanize? How many are in a coding boot camp or have attended a boot camp? So there's some in attendance. So this isn't an unfamiliar condition. I'm sure it's come up before you even considered it. So thank you for coming. I hope that this is fruitful. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about your experience, a time a story perhaps in which you felt like an imposter?
I've got so many. Right now. Next. So like, I think my age kind of ties into this as well. I'm 21, and I just got into a basically senior position. So imposter syndrome is high, really, really high. I feel like I should not be here. It's extremely nerve-wracking, but it's really fun at the same time. So that's like my, basically entire career feels like an imposter syndrome to a degree. But I don't know, it doesn't really like hold you back at the same time, so.
I guess I never really stopped feeling that way. I think the hardest part was when I graduated Galvanize and like, you know, throughout like the job search, it was just really hard getting all these rejection letters. It just makes you feel like, you know, like, what the hell am I doing? Like, am I not good enough? Or like, you know, just stuff like that. But, you know, but once I, you know, got a job offer, I got multiple job offers. So, I mean, I guess it kind of like goes up and down, you know, with this imposter syndrome. With my job now, like, I'm coding in stacks I've never learned. So yeah, of course, imposter syndrome is really high. But I mean, you know, I feel like the reassurance of like the team and, you know, like everyone telling me that, you know, you're doing great and stuff like that, it really helps. But I don't think it completely goes away because you're always learning in this field. So you're always gonna feel like, you know, like I'm not good enough or I don't know enough. So, I mean, that's why we're in this field, right? Because you know, we want to have infinite knowledge, you know, and, you know, just be able to learn more things. So, yeah.
Yeah, and kind of building on that, like, I feel the same way when, you know, you're around a lot of different people. Like, I'm a data scientist. You know, there's a lot of, you know, people doing data science, and there's so much you can do with it. You know, you've got people doing deep learning and computer vision, and, you know, other people doing NLP, like natural language processing. And there's just so much out there to know. And, you know, not many people can take all of that, you know, and become experts in everything. So what I've kind of done, like, I was feeling kind of like, you know, an imposter, like I don't know all of these things to a high degree. Is I've taken a step back and I'm like, hey, you know, I just need to learn one thing really deep instead of just learning everything there is to know right away. You know, I can take a step back and not have to read like 100 different books right away. So, yeah, that's what I have to say about it.
For me, like I said earlier, I mean, I can give you countless examples. Even when I was 21, I used to feel this. But the latest one I would say is when I did my Galvanize boot camp, I was coming back to the tech industry after 17 years, and I did some research, tried to get a job by myself, didn't happen. And so finally I came, and the first day I walked into class, it was like a bunch of 20-year-olds. And, you know, mostly everyone was obviously, we were just three women, and there was no person of color. So, I mean, all those things definitely added to the feeling of being an imposter. So that was the first, I mean, I think in a month or so is when, well, it never went away because, you know, coding camp is super hard. At least it was hard for me. And so it never really went away, but then I felt like when I started interacting with the folks, and I felt like I belonged a little bit. But it's funny, you mentioned about how the job search took some time. For me, I graduated in June, and I landed up in my first interview, and I got hired. And it's so funny that the first feeling when I was coming down the building after the interview, and they called me and they said, you got a job. And I felt, man, that was easy. Maybe they just wanted to fill the women quota or something like that. So that's another form of imposter syndrome where you try to, negate everything, every success that you get. So yeah, that is some of the examples, current examples that I can give you.
Fantastic, thank you. It's very similar to the question I just asked, but I want to see if maybe perhaps I can elicit a deeper response in that. Is there been a time for any of you where imposter syndrome has had an insidious effect or damaging effect? Perhaps you stepped away from an interview because you were checking yourself out instead of saying, I can do this, or, I myself can speak to that experience of having felt like I just don't even want to try for it, and I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to finish this process because I know that I'm just not capable. At least that's what I'm telling myself. That's this narrative that's sort of been building along. So if any of you have had that, perhaps, in a time where that experience has had an effect, a negative effect, in which you missed an opportunity or perhaps just had to, you stepped out of something.
I have a couple things to say to that. So, not to be a motivational speaker or anything, but I have that daily. Right now, my company wants me to run a POC. Actually, I built a POC that we presented to our CEO last week. It was an awesome project that they let me run solo. And I was like, holy cow, I can't run this. Like, there's no way. And then, we ended up getting it done, getting it finished, and then it was presented, all went well. So, I would say, I get that literally every day, especially with the projects putting on now, the new position, running the meetup where I have to act like a teacher and teach people things who have way more experience than me, extremely nerve-wracking. Talking up here is nerve-wracking. I would just say, that happens to me every day, especially with, my position and where I came from, my background for sure. I came from a really small town where, I don't know, things were much, much, much different than they are now. Just keep pushing forward, and worst case scenario, if somebody says, you don't get the job, then you don't get the job, you apply to the next job, maybe you get that one, and it just kind of trickles until it happens, and then you sit up here and you act like you know what you're talking about, so.
I don't think I really had an experience where I didn't do something because I felt like I was incapable. Obviously I took a job doing C# and Angular, which I had no idea, because, I wanted that challenge. So I think the only thing is feeling I'm so far behind from everybody in there because they've been working on that project for so long and they're familiar with the stack, and then I'm just coming in brand new. But it's I try to think about it. I'm well, they obviously hired me because they think I can learn this, quickly and efficiently. So I guess try to give myself some more credit,
Yeah, I think in the past, I've kind of done that to myself where I'll say you know what, hey, I don't need to rise up the ladder. I'm fine with status quo. I've even told managers in, progress report meetings, that kind of thing. Oh, what do you want to do? Oh, I'm good, just right here, right now. Which I don't think anybody really wants you to say that, because it doesn't sound like you're, ambitious and want to do well in the company. But so I feel like I've kind of done that before.
Yeah, I would say I experience it every single day. I'm on a 3-month break now, so not anymore, but at work definitely, I would experience it on every single day. Just same thing, new stack, lot of pressure. And then I was also a scrum master for 2 teams while I was doing development. And so even if people told me I was doing a good job, self-doubt is always playing. But it's a silly example, but we have in Vertafore, we had this fishbowl where we could put in our names if we wanted to go for lunch with the CTO. So sometimes I force myself to do brave things. So I put that in, And then same thing happened. Went back home, had all the self-doubts, and I'm like, I'm dumb. How would I even talk to the CTO? I don't know anything about anything that's going on in the company, I guess, or whatever. Came back the next day, pulled it out, and then, well, talked myself back into it and put it in again. So yeah, but like I said, every single day, I have to force myself to get over that feeling and try to do something different.
I heard quite a bit of what my next question was going to be, which is what your personal advice would be to somebody who's facing it. But I think I have a better question, is what has it been a good piece of advice given to you by someone in your life? Whether that be an educator, a friend, a colleague, a CTO at your company, whomever that is, what's a good piece of advice?
Yeah, given to me. So I went through a couple schools. I was in the military and got like that beat into me figuratively and more like literally, in a sense of like to keep pushing. I would say like a little bit of Chris Hegg, who's our one of our career advisors here at Galvanize, also kind of helped that a bit as well. And kind of, I don't know if he's in here or not, but he's hiding over there. But we'll call him out. Maybe he'll come out here. But he was a good motivator, like coming to the classes and everything like that, and kind of like pushing, like, you deserve this job, you deserve this or that. Like, if they'll give it to you, you deserve it. Like, more or less, you need to like show up and be ready to perform whenever you get the job. But nonetheless, he was like there to kind of like push that motive to people and kind of inspire people and get people ready to go into the workforce and, you know, do it. So I'd say like him, along with prior experience, was pretty awesome, helpful for me.
Damn, I can't top that. I think, gosh, I don't even know. Well, I mean, like, I guess it's different for everybody, though, So, change shorts, yes. Change. But, it's just like, I feel like with imposter syndrome, really depends on, like the individual. I think for me, it's like, if you're feeling that, like, find, like, figure out, like, what's gonna work for you, like, what's gonna, like, help you feel less of an imposter. And for me, it's just like, if I don't know something, I'm gonna dig into it, figure it out, and like, I don't know, I feel like in this tech industry, like, no one's gonna hold your hand, through any of it. You can ask for help, yeah, sure, but it's like, even with boot camps, it's like, you're here at a boot camp, you're not in a university, they're not gonna hold your hand through everything. They're teaching you how to learn. And so it's like, you have to be able to, like, get yourself out of that rut. And like, I feel like the only way to make, to make yourself not feel like an imposter with like something, it's like, learn more about it, better yourself with it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think what started making me feel better about what I knew and what I didn't know was, just hearing that, like I read a blog post, kind of, this whole issue, but specific to like data scientists, and just talking about how, like the unicorn, the person who knows everything about everything, has got a PhD and is crazy smart. I mean, that is very rare. So just kind of giving myself a break, and like, most people are not going to be that person, so go out, if I feel like I don't know something, I go out and I learn about it. I don't have to know every single thing. Luckily, there's so many resources out there. We can check it out online. There's, classes, there's night classes here. You can learn. But yeah, just not having to be the perfectionist, I guess, just kind of, you're good, you can learn, you're good. That's enough, I think.
So actually, when I was doing my coding camp here, like I said, when I felt it too much, I started writing to random people, like just seriously. I wrote to I don't know how many CEOs of companies and CTOs. I would basically look up some awesome profile on LinkedIn and just write to somebody to tell them that I felt this way, and basically I was getting back in the industry and just how they feel about the whole thing. And the reason was that and I would suggest that to everyone, own your story. I wasn't ashamed of the story that I was staying back for my kids and stuff like that for 17 years, but I definitely needed to tell it more to people to see what they have to say about it. So one thing is put yourself out there. Every single one of us has imposter syndrome. There's nobody saying that I don't ever have it. So put yourself out there for sure. And when I started writing to these people, I actually asked them whether they ever experienced imposter syndrome. And I got some great answers. One was, which I think a common one, fake it till you make it. So just assume that you're really successful. Visualizing that you're successful and actually walking through the process. I have an interview tomorrow, and I'm seriously visualizing a few questions that I might really mess up on, but my answers. So kind of practice how you would face a situation. That is one thing that I kind of learned from those emails. I was going to get at one thing though. Yeah. I don't know if you know this author called Mel Robbins. She's written a book called The 5-Minute Rule or something like that. And I kind of follow these people all the time. So if you feel like you're an imposter, you obviously know. The moment you know that it's an imposter syndrome, you know that that's like the bad person talking in your mind. So you know it's not you. So put yourself out there. So what Mel Robbins says is, if you have a thought, like you want to speak up in a meeting or you want to just do this crazy thing, within 5 seconds, do it. And then you'll see a difference. And that's exactly what I did once. I walked into Vertafore, and we have this center table where all the senior engineers would usually sit down. And they never asked us not to show up there. I mean, they would have welcomed us, but none of us, we would all kind of just watch them and see them talk about stuff and architecture and blah, blah. And then one of those days I had decided as soon as I would walk in, I'm going to count back from 5, and before I got to 0, I would take my chair and pull it to the table. And I did that. Truthfully, I had nothing to add to the conversation. I just sat there for the half an hour and heard them, but I felt awesome. And then the next day was easier to do it. So just put yourself out there, is what I would say.
Can I add to you real quick? Yeah, sure. So whenever you were talking about people having imposter syndrome and feeling like, basically what I was going to say is obviously the reason for this panel is more or less to be imposter syndrome is a thing that is probably encouraged. And if you don't have that, I'd say that you would have something that Galvanize would call not a growth mindset. And it's more or less like a way that Galvanize kind of teaches their students to go into curriculum and be like, we know you don't know this, but you can learn it. And that's the biggest thing you take out of there. It's not the knowledge that you get out of it, it's the ability to, and understanding within yourself to be able to learn more. And without having imposter syndrome, you're basically telling yourself, I already know everything, which you don't. And to touch on that, and how I can know that for a fact, is I do a lot of things with AWS. AWS in 2018 or 2017, I believe, had, you might have to fact check me, 1,700 updates that year. How can you learn a whole entire system plus the updates that it goes through, 1,700, plus learn how to code, plus have a normal family, plus do all that? You can't. So if anybody's telling you they don't have a position, they're lying to themselves and to you, I'd say.
It sounds to me like you described that place where you need to be, that sort of uncomfortable place, but learning how to live in that and acknowledge its purpose or role it to play. Like that growth mindset you described is really letting yourself or encouraging yourself to get there, to get into that situation where you're not going to feel great about it, but really knowing that you have the faculties, the capabilities to tackle the task at hand or stick with it at the very least. In a word, how would you describe the emotions or the feeling of imposter syndrome?
One word? Can I use 2 words?
Say a sentence.
Okay. Filled with anxiety.
Incompetent and stupid.
Yeah, feeling like I'm not good enough.
I would say the same thing, but maybe fear, feeling dumb.
So we know you all possess a technical background now, having come out of a coding boot camp, working in the field. Before jumping into that career change or jumping back into a career in tech, what were some sources for you of imposter syndrome in your lives? Anita, earlier you said that it was like multifactorial, that it's kind of there are a lot of things that go into it, whether it be gender or it be maybe I don't possess the skills. And it seems for most of us working in tech that a large part of it is that, right? We just don't feel we have the adequate knowledge to meet the needs or this ask. But before coming into Galvanize's program, do you have an experience or a time in which you felt that way? You felt like an outsider or definitely an imposter?
Yeah, so more or less a lot of my life has been like that. I grew up in like a small town like Mississippi, escaped that, went to the military and to Navy SEAL training, and I cannot describe imposter syndrome any more than going through that. That was the most stressful, anxiety-filled imposter syndrome, now that knowing what that word and meaning is, I've ever felt my entire life, more than I do now, obviously. Like, other than the fact that you make a lot more money and you have to perform, that is quite daunting of a task at times, but going through the military and especially special operations training was quite difficult, and obviously didn't complete that, but it was a lot of imposter syndrome filled there.
I guess before coming in to Galvanize, when I got my acceptance into Galvanize, yeah, of course, I felt that really, really bad. So I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I was in the beauty industry for 10 years. So this is something totally different. And so, yeah, I felt like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, how do I know that, I'm going to be successful in this field or not? So, yeah.
Yeah, previous to Galvanize, I worked in the geophysical industry. Now, I came from a background in math and had a minor in computer science, and they just happened to be hiring processing geophysicists at the time I was graduating from college, and they figured they could just train everybody to do the job. You can learn math, you can learn, geophysics. So, which I could do it well, but I always felt kind of like I didn't fully understand some of the geology aspects of it. We had some geophysicists, actual geophysicists and geologists. It's like I knew what to do with the data, but as far as what it all meant, I did feel kind of behind, and there was like so much to learn. And this was before, like, even now there's probably not a whole lot about it on the internet. Like the tech industry, there's not an Udemy class like in processing seismic data. So so there weren't a lot of resources. Just talking to people, or maybe taking actual classes at universities, which I did not do. But so I felt kind of like an imposter in that industry.
Yeah, actually, for me, the first time, now that I look back, I'm guessing the first time I actually really felt it was when I first came to the country in 1998. So I got my admission to University of Denver for the Math and Computer Science, MS, and I got a full ride. And I came here, and I would not even tell my relatives actually back in India that I had got a full ride, because I felt so stupid. I thought I literally fooled somebody, because there was no way I was getting a full ride. So for a long time, it took me a long time to figure out why would they even admit me, like, and give me a full right to top it all. So yeah, that was a big thing. And, to add to that, I wanted to say that once you're in that mode, what happens is at work, that's what used to happen to me, where you don't ask questions or you don't participate in discussions because you're already feeling like an imposter, but that just adds to your feeling more dumb or not even exposing yourself. You may have wonderful ideas, but the world is not going to hear about it because you are feeling like an imposter. So it's like a spiral that goes on.
The cycle, right, that reinforcement that occurs once you're in that fear state, how did you break it? And one point, like, is there an example you have of breaking that? Anita, Gretchen, on.
Well, I quit whenever mine came. um, that was a lesson learned, and now it's put me to where I'm at now. So, like trial and error, I guess, kind of a thing.
I think the most important thing is just ask for help. Because, I'm pretty sure, even, the people that have more experience than you, they were all there in your shoes at one point in their lives. So, yeah, I'm sure they asked for help too. So, you shouldn't feel stupid for doing so, because that's how you're going to learn, how you're going to grow, and hopefully stop feeling like an imposter.
Yeah, so stop self-sabotaging by just avoiding, the issue or, whatever is making you feel stupid, instead of moving forward and learning about it and, feeling more comfortable with material is a good thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, all of that. And then two more things come to mind is, one is obviously look at the facts. I mean, if you've done well in school, I mean, I knew I had done well in school. You obviously have all the certificates and stuff like that. So look at those and tell yourself that you're good. The second thing is, I tell my daughter this actually, because sometimes she comes back and behaves exactly like I did. So she says, I'm dumb, blah, 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 whatever. And I tell her, look at yourself as a third person. What would you tell a friend if she had said the same exact thing like you did? Then, and I do practice that, basically, just try to get myself somewhere else. And as a third person, look at myself and see and tell myself I'm doing okay. But yeah.
Well, that is my portion of questions. I have always been a fan, a proponent of engaged audiences. So if you have a question for us that you would like to ask, please let me know, and happy to walk out. I think that we all know and are well aware of the symptoms, of the sources of this condition. I thought that maybe toward the end of this discussion we could get into some solutions. There were some really awesome, very straightforward, very practical recommendations. If I could ask a question, I don't see any immediate hands jump up at me for a burning question to get out, is many of you are involved in this community, tech, in some capacity. Earlier, when I had you introduce yourselves, you mentioned your meetup, a community or an organization. Has that been a big part, a community aspect in really helping you pass through that difficult mindset that we can all become kind of whirled into? A community that you have here. For me, I guess I'm really twisting this question to my advantage, because I've felt that community was always the answer to that, is having people to help you, support you. But for you, along your journeys before Galvanize, in Galvanize, is there a community in mind, your meetup community, your dev community, your families, that really helped you, that you can lean on?
Yeah, definitely. So I moved to Colorado about 1.5 years ago, and then I didn't know what I was doing. Jumped a couple of jobs, quit a job on the spot, went to college for a semester, and then decided to go to Galvanize. And with that, I was here with a buddy of mine who unfortunately had like some crazy virus attack his nervous system, and basically put him in a wheelchair and now into a walker, so he's getting better. So that's a good thing. Trying to be optimistic with that. And he and I were together like best friends growing up, and now coming to Galvanize, I've Hence had a girlfriend now and had a bunch of friends. An is my friend. The community has embraced myself. Thomas has embraced myself. Bowling occasionally and everything like that. So it's been like extremely helpful to myself, mental health wise, everything like that, to come into the community, kind of like both arms welcoming in, and then like having like a fairly straight path forward for my career now, and what I want to do with my life and be able to support my own family and things like that. So I'd say like it's been pretty awesome for me with that, with the community and like having that on my side. Otherwise, I don't know where I'd be at right now.
I guess my own community were the people that I went to Galvanize with. They definitely, my cohort, yes, G95. They really, made my experience fun and, because like we were all on the same boat. We started from, nothing, now, and so it really helped, kind of, I guess, make it seem more real, rather than like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not gonna be able to do this, but it's like there's 20 other people sitting there with you, trying to help you out, push you through it, and just, even with like the learn to code events here at Galvanize, like, I would help tutor and TA, just like helping other people learn kind of like makes me feel like, oh yeah, I obviously know something if I'm able to teach somebody something. So, it's just, I feel like, everywhere you look, like there's gonna be some kind of community for you. And just as long as you, ask for it and willing to engage yourself in it.
Yeah, I would say there is a really good data community in Denver, like folks that do stuff with data and love working with data. So it's nice to have so many meetups, like you can, find something that interests you and share experiences with people. And like you were saying with your, having your cohort there to kind of lean on. I felt the same way. When we were all looking for jobs, we were all really supportive of each other. And then, yeah, my family definitely, like when I've kind of hit the wall and I'm just like burn out, they'll talk me down and make me realize like I'm doing okay and just chill out. So, yeah.
Yeah, so after I started working, actually, I realized how much I did not know coming into Galvanize. Like, I didn't know how to network. There was nobody who told me how to network. There was nobody who told me how to, Galvanize did a great job with resumes and, stuff like that. But there were so many insecurities and stuff like that. So I did start a meetup, and we meet the third Tuesday of every month, and it's called Dare to Walk Your Dream. And in that, all the networking that I did when I was struggling, basically I got to meet these wonderful people. I would call them for coffee, go meet them and stuff. So they actually come and talk to the attendees of the meetup, and they talk about various expertise that they have, how to get an ally, or things like that. So basically, yes, like all of them said, it just helps to walk the path with somebody else and get to know their experience and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how it helped.
Fantastic. Thank you, all four of you, for coming out, giving authentic, helpful answers. All of us who've had the experience of imposter syndrome that came out tonight, thank you as well. If there aren't any questions, I think we could just kind of wrap up there. But is there any last minute questions from the audience? Wonderful. My name is Tom. I work here. I work out of this space every day. I'm the evangelist for Galvanize. If you'd like to learn more about what we do, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or just come up to me afterward. I'll be having a beer by the counter. Is it okay if we chat with you one-on-one? If people have questions they feel like that might be better? Great. Well, thank you all for coming. Clap for these guys.
Can I add a real quick plug? So I run a meetup, right? AWS Denver.